All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Al Haymon and the PBC are killing. Top Rank, Matchroom Boxing, Golden Boy Promotions, all of them in the ratings so far because the ratings just came out for their card, which featured Jamal James versus Thomas Delorme, and the numbers were considerably better than what you get on ESPN, with people have been getting on DAZN. And so this is the second PBC ratings that we've had since the pandemic came back, and both of them are more solid than the rest of the field. And I think that it really tells you something important about boxing. And we're going to go that in this video. We need to stop speculating and trying to create things that work for you that other people don't want, right? And focus on giving good fights that people are willing to watch. But let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So, in boxing, you have four networks involved in boxing in the United States. Two major networks involved in boxing in the UK, right? So we'll just talk about those two. The networks are Showtime Sports, ESPN, Dazn, and Sky Sports in the UK, BT Sports in the UK, all right? The first person to come back and bring boxing back was ESPN. ESPN's ratings, and you can go do the research for yourself, but I'm just going to give you just an average, off the cuff average of what they were doing, of the numbers that I've seen. And they range, somewhere around averaging in the 300,000s, peaking at 500,000, numbers like that on ESPN, which is a huge network, right? It is not free network, but it is a huge network. Most boxing fans have access to ESPN. So when ESPN does 500,000 averages, but then you have BT Sports, they average for their fight card that they had on BT Sports in the UK, something like 93,000, right? Sky Sports, which is huge in the UK, the number one place to go for boxing in the UK, right? And in UK has these, do these really great numbers. They got hundreds of thousands of people, 100,000, 80, 90,000 people going to fights to see fights. They've got a very active fan base. They managed to average, I do believe, somewhere around 390,000, right? I think they might have peaked at 500,000 for the Matchroom card that came in there, right? Then you have the, multiple ESPN cards. I told you about that. Golden Boy cards on DAZN. Nobody's watching because nobody have DAZN. But Showtime did, for their first card, I do believe it was like for a Showbox level fight card, averaged right around 200. I think it was like they peaked like around 150, peaked at 200,000, right? So Showtime's numbers were very close to what they usually do in that circumstance. So, right, that's not some big, huge drop. That is, right what you would expect for that type of fight card. So I did a video after those numbers came out, and we're like, okay, let's compare how people are doing compared to what they were doing pre-pandemic. If you look at ESPN, their numbers have dropped in half. You know what I mean? Like in half. Terrible numbers. Sky Sports. For Sky Sports to have a fight card that averages 300,000, right, that is such a poor performance if you consider that Dillian White, who fought on pay-per-view on Sky Sports, did something like 500,000 pay-per-views on Sky Sports. So if you're having fight cards for free that are during the pandemic that are doing fewer numbers than your pay-per-views were doing, that tells you that you are you're not quite doing what you're supposed to be doing, right? Now, and that's a secondary pay-per-view. I'm not talking about like an Anthony Joshua pay-per-view. I'm talking about a Dillian White one, right? So anyway, you get my point. Those numbers are not very good. So if you look at how all of the promoters are doing, there's only one group that has come anywhere near to their number. They have approached their normal numbers. And those are the Fox card and the Showtime card. Everybody else has taken huge decline, huge cuts in their viewership, right? Now, why is that? People could say because it is that you can't say that the PBC's numbers are better for Showtime and Fox because they are just having because the fight cards are so much better. It's not the case. Jamal James versus Thomas Delorme. Those fights, those are known fighters, but those are not mega stars. Those are not top level as far. Now, they're top level fighters, very good fighters, don't get me wrong, and the fight was very good. But Jamal James nor Thomas Delorme are, like main event type of fighters, at that level, right? It's not even at the level of a Caleb Plant. So for these guys to do those type of numbers tells you, this is what it tells me, that networks in the United States that air and promote on American fighters on a regular basis perform better in America than promotional companies that don't. Now, you would think that this would be common sense, but it's not common sense, right? It's not common sense because you have ESP, you have Dazn, and you have not Golden Boy Promotions as much, because Golden Boy Promotions has they have a lot of American fighters from what I can see. It's just that it's mostly like Mexican American and Mexican fans, but the Golden Boy does have a good number of American fighters, so it's not like they're not promoting American fighters, but they are on a network where there isn't anybody to watch the fight, which is Dazn, right? But anyway, it would make sense that if you promote American fighters in America, that more Americans will watch them because they are from areas where people have the network, right? People do not have ESPN in the Ukraine. So if Vasily Lomachenko was to come and, well, actually that's kind of a bad example because he's a primetime fighter, but the same thing would go if you bring a lower level fighter that like a Navrati, right? Navrati's not American. I do believe that he's Mexican, like Navrati. But anyway, you get my point, man. The PBC, by focusing on American fighters and Black American and not having any qualms, as far as I can see, about featuring Black American fighters, that's why their ratings are better, because there's more people in the United States here to actually watch it. And if you build a relationship with that community, the community will support you over time. And they had been doing that. The PBC has been doing that by featuring American fighters, by featuring Black fighters for years. I believe that goodwill is built up. And because there's the geographic centered interest on it, their numbers are going to do better. Now, what is the solution, though, that is being offered by people? I just say by people, right? And how do you solve this problem? Because this is not something that people are missing, right? This is obvious. You have people in the boxing media that are writing articles saying, man, like, look, dude, this is not working. We're going to have to do something, about this boxing and pandemic, because people aren't just watching it for the sake of watching it because they ain't got anything else to do, right? These fights that they have are not being acceptable. So what can we do about it, right? Now, the media that I've seen, which I believe is probably, or oftentimes really regurgitate what the promoter's viewpoint is on it, right? And I don't know if they do that because they've been holding close conversations with them and you just kind of have a groupthink thing when people are talking, or whether it's just, that they're really pushing hard for the interest of the promoter. But what they're suggesting is that what fighters need to do is they've got to get used to the fact that they're not going to make very much money, right? That they're going to have to take smaller purses in order to get these fights because there's not the money there. But what I'm hoping is, and we'll see with the pay-per-views, we'll see when Gervonta Davis' pay-per-view, we'll see with Jermell Charlo and Jamal Charlo's pay-per-view, we'll see with Errol Spence Jr.'s pay-per-view and Deontay Wilder's pay-per-view. We'll see whether or not people are willing to pay money for fights that they actually want to see, right? And if it would work, like, hey, if we have a problem with people wanting to see these fights, there's two ways we can solve this. We can either, accept that they're not going to watch the fights, right? And cut the fighter's salary, right? So that we can make our money, so that we can be profitable while we give fight fans fights that they don't want to see. Or you can go the extreme other way and say, I'm going to only make fights that people have real interest in and that they actually want. Because if they actually want it, then they may come to see it, right? But if you take the first method is going to be the first option that people take. It's going to be the first option for Top Rank. It's going to be the first for the first option for Matchroom Boxing. It's more than likely going to be the first option for Golden Boy Promotions, because they don't have the fighters signed to them to actually make the good fights, with the exception of a couple weight classes, like say the lightweight division for Top Rank, or the 140-pound division for Top Rank, right? Where they have a couple of big fights that they can make, which would really interest people, But I'm hoping that people would say, let's do less is more, right? Less volume of fights, but a higher quality of fights, right? A lower volume, but a higher quality of fight. And then I believe people will be interested in it, especially if it's, something where there's advertisers associated with that and stuff, because I have to believe, dude, that if your ratings go down in a specific top rank, a specific time slot, or for a specific, niche, that the advertising dollars might be connected with that, and the advertising dollars for those slots might decrease, which would decrease your amount of money available for you to have those fights. So, I think the ratings for Fox and Showtime's prove that it is not, that the reason that those other guys are suffering is not completely related to the fact that there's a pandemic. I believe that it proves that it is possible to get close to the same numbers as what you were getting before the pandemic for the same level of fight, right? If you are investing in American fighters, right? Same thing over there you get my point. So, but I don't believe that they're going to actually do that. I think what they're going to try to do is have a bunch of fights that people aren't really interested in, because they're trying to speculate and create these stars in boxing. The numbers are going to suffer, right? But they're going to then force these fighters to take less money, because they're going to say less money's in the pot, right? But the big guys, the popular fighters, they would be smarter with the mode, I do believe, of being with a network or a promotional company or a managerial outfit where they're going to actually be able to get really good fights. And if they win the fights, then people are going to be interested to see them fight, and they're going to tune in. But you got to have fighters on there that people are interested in, and you got to have fights that people are interested in. And it's going to be very difficult to do that if you're constantly trying to speculate and sell people fighters that they aren't already interested in, or if they don't have any geographic or demographic connection to. That's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think, and with that, I'm out. Peace.